Welcome to The Monk and the Hedonist, a podcast that explores longevity and resilience and all the drivers that influence it, from our cognitive to physical to emotional health. The show is hosted by Dr. Bobby Canero
and Dr. Deepthi Agrawal. Tune in as we speak to experts, peak performers, and influencers on these important topics. Hey, Bobby.
Hey, Deepthi.
So what you drinking over there in Dubuque?
I am having a 1942 Don Julio. It's my favorite tequila of choice. What about you? What are you drinking over there in Chicago?
Ooh, well, first, Don Julio is my favorite choice of liquor.
Yeah.
And that is certainly not the Indian man basic drink of choice.
Oh, God. What is the Indian man drink of choice?
Like Scotch, Johnny Walker.
Yeah, that's true, actually. That's probably true.
So I am actually trying to honor dry January for a few more days.
Very nice.
And so I have my favorite tea going on, this Yogi brand. And one of the teas I love drinking is the Kava Stress Relief, especially on a weeknight before work. It tastes like licorice for those who might be interested.
Interesting.
You know, I actually have an idea. So when we get together for these podcast chats, let's surprise each other with a beverage of choice that falls somewhere on the spectrum of the monk and the hedonism.
Ooh, I love that. So I guess tonight I'm the hedonist and you're the monk.
And I'm the monk. Yeah. Fitting, right?
It is fitting.
But maybe not all the time. I might surprise you one day.
Okay, that's fair. I can't.
So it's game day. We're starting with podcast 0.0.
This is it.
So what's the podcast going to be about?
Oh, we've been talking about doing something together in the longevity space, in the health and wellness space for quite a long time. Mm-hmm. And I'm so excited that we're finally doing this and it's here. I think what really made us, do this and really take that first step is what we had to deal with over the last, year with COVID and the pandemic. And it's because it really amplified just all of the major issues from a mental health perspective, as well as a physical health perspective, what we're dealing with as a society, not just locally, but throughout the whole country, throughout the whole world. And if you just take mental health, for example, about 40% of us on certain surveys stated that we had some type of mental illness, whether that was depression or anxiety throughout this pandemic. From a physical health perspective, as a country, we're dealing with significant obesity rates and diabetes rates. And I think what's heartbreaking is that perhaps, a lot of these adverse events when it comes to mental health or even physical health, the amount of death we saw from COVID, some of the, the tragedies we saw from mental illness, maybe that could have been avoided. Maybe we could have done something about that if we were more resilient on a emotional, physical level. So I think that, to me, that was a catalyst as to really understanding and believing that we had to do something now.
Right. And as you alluded to, this past year has really exposed our vulnerabilities. And it's a great time to introspect on a lot of those topics. This has been an evolving passion project for us. And I'm really excited to bring our medical background and our interest in overall lifestyle medicine. Mm-hmm. And even though it's our project, I'm hoping it becomes very relatable and provides empowering information to our listeners. So a lot of people have wondered who's the monk and who's the hedonist.
That's a great question. And, I get that question quite a bit too. Apparently I'm the hedonist tonight. But on a more serious level, I think, the title, we went through a lot of different titles when we were trying to pick what was going to be optimal for our podcast. And we wanted a title that was going to be interesting, something that was going to be unique. And the fact that you're a woman and I'm a man, There's some opposites right there. And so when you think of the monk and the hedonist, you can't be more polar opposite than a monk and a hedonist.
Right.
So this whole concept of polarity and how we have to deal with that in life, the truth is rarely black and white. It's usually somewhere in the middle, just like the yin yang symbol. So that's why I just loved that title.
Right. Yeah, I think the concept of polarities is so fascinating. It shows up every day. And I love our title too. I think of it like a seesaw. So most people are constantly figuring out how to balance their life. And where is that secret of well-being without having to be so austere or on the other hand, being completely unhinged?
Yeah.
So, we're starting a new year, and usually people get introspective to help them figure out what they want in the coming year. What, Bobby, do you think was your biggest challenge this past year?
Oh, what a great question. And, I'm certainly not unique in the challenges that I'm going to talk about. But for example, one that stood out for me is the fact that I love to travel. I love to travel the world. I love to meet up with family. I love to meet up with friends. And because of the pandemic, that became a lot more challenging to do. So from that, I realized something about myself, that when challenges occur, when difficult situations arise, that I like to escape. And this is where, again, I think why I love the title The Monk and the Hedonist, because I had to realize, I had to make the decision if I was going to be a monk and kind of deal with these challenges, these inner turbulences that were going on, or if I was going to try to escape and be the hedonist. Fortunately, I did some inner work during this time to deal with some of those challenges, and I'm thankful for that. Yeah. What about you? I mean, I'm sure that, again, what I said wasn't unique, but as a woman, I'm sure that some of the challenges you had may have been different than what I had to deal with as a man. What were some of the challenges you experienced?
So many different challenges this past year. I wouldn't even know where to start if I thought back to last March. But one that has become more striking to me over time is how living alone was very magnified without having sort of the social interaction that you're used to. And even trying to navigate dating during the pandemic. That was interesting.
I can only imagine.
I was trying to find the silver lining. And I think when it comes to video dating, at least I realized that no one sees my shoes and there's no awkwardness around picking up the tab.
Yeah, I bet. And so just, on a personal note, like, when you do go out on dates, do you prefer the man to pay, or do you pick up the check?
Well, there definitely seems to be two sides to that story, and I certainly never expected or never mind. But even though times have evolved and changed, I do think that there's a warmth that comes along with chivalry, and it's always a good look for the first date.
I couldn't agree more.
So, on a more serious note, you talked a little bit about this escapist wanderlust nature that you had to let go of during this past year. Was there anything that you did to resolve that inner turbulence that you were facing this past year?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the things I would say that I never would have done before, and I think this is just kind of being comfortable with vulnerability, let's say. But one of the inner turbulences I had, which I probably never fully dealt with before, was that I was hurt by a very, very close friend many years ago, and I thought I was over it, but his name would still come up, and I would have pain when that name came up, and I think I felt that more than ever before this past year, because I had to kind of deal with it. I couldn't just escape, like perhaps I normally did. And this friend hurt me on a very profound level. I thought that he kind of crossed a certain line, and so what I did was I actually wrote a forgiveness letter. I wrote a letter asking forgiveness for anything that I did, and that I also forgave him for how he hurt me. So that was just one example of how I really, instead of pushing feelings away, I actually really kind of stepped towards them and dealt with them, and it was very
Right.
therapeutic. I never got a response. I never got a letter back, but it was still therapeutic, the whole process of it.
Right. Well, that's a very vulnerable act. And thank you for sharing that. It's interesting to me, I think, that, while we talk a lot about the negatives of the pandemic, actually, that's a positive. I think you probably had the time to think about what you wanted to do
Yeah.
and actually made the time to act on it, which is really, it's a good thing. It was something that you probably needed to do for a long time.
Yeah, no, that's so true. So I have a
Yeah.
question, Deepthi. So there's a lot of shows out there on longevity and health and wellness, and we know that our show is unique in some ways. We have a female and male host, and we're going to be bringing in different perspectives into this. What do you feel as, how you're qualified, how I'm qualified, how are we qualified to do a podcast like this?
Right. Well, I think there's probably a few things. I'd like to emphasize, that at our core, we're human, and that means we share the same human condition that everyone else does, and it all makes us relatable to each other. And then the different experiences that we've each had also makes us unique. And, just a few things, like we both grew up in the Midwest, although in different spots, and we were both children of Indian immigrant parents. So that came with a few different unique perspectives. We had the positives of navigating values that I know we're both very appreciative of. And we also have had to dissect out some of our limiting beliefs that probably didn't necessarily serve us or still don't serve us. But the other big part of our identity is the privilege of being a physician. And to me, that means really trying to make sense of human beings, and also how can we advance the human condition. And I love this concept so much, and I don't necessarily get to express this part of myself fully in my day-to-day practice. And I know you feel the same way. And we're both very passionate about how we can optimize our lifestyle and help other people do the same and decrease the suffering that we see in our clinical practices. And so I know that the two of us will bring our unique backgrounds and perspectives and help others.
Absolutely. And I just want to echo some of your comments. Obviously we both come from some really good training backgrounds. We both went to Northwestern. You're an anesthesiologist and pain medicine physician, and I'm a radiation oncologist. So we both deal with we both deal with difficult, challenging cases and situations. For me personally, dealing with cancer patients, I see a lot of suffering and pain, and you as well. So I bring in some really cool perspectives with a very unified goal to be able to ease suffering and pain for people, for our audience, and also to help them live longer, to help them live stronger, to help them to be able to deal with relationships better. Also, me being an entrepreneur, starting my own medical practice, I'm also very interested in entrepreneurship and financial health. And I think both of us are also interested in just overall happiness and fulfillment. And I think we have some really great guests and contacts that we're going to be bringing onto the show to be able to explore that. So I'm so excited that we can do that together.
Well, I'm looking forward to accomplishing what we set out to do, and I'm excited to continue these conversations with our upcoming incredible guests. So everyone stay tuned.
Deepthi, cheers.
Cheers.
Till next time.
Till next time.